Hi guys, welcome to the very first episode of, I haven't even named it. I think I'm gonna call it Food and True Crime Time with Dijo Mustard. Just with Diva, I don't know. I think my name is Diva, so I'm gonna I'm gonna just say with Diva for now. Figure it out in the future. So basically the concept is that I've cooked some food and I've probably uploaded the video of myself cooking the food. I've made myself some pizza as well as smoothie and a nice dessert. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to sit here and it's a mukbang that I'm filming, but while telling you guys a true crime story. All right. So Mhlengwa Zikode was born on the 8th of November 1965. He was born in a rural area known as uMzimkhulu in KZN. He had one older sister, two older brothers, and later in life he acquired three younger siblings, a young adopted brother as well as a younger adopted sister. And his principal caretaker was his older sister. He loved her, he adored her, he looked up to her, okay? And Zikode's family moved around a lot due to the faction fights that would happen. They would move around to avoid the violence that was happening in the area at the time. And he pretty much spent most of his childhood looking after his father's goats. And he had a very isolated childhood. He stuck to his family pretty much because his father he didn't want other kids to play with he didn't want his kids to play with other kids. He didn't want his kids having peers. He had this thing that, they're gonna be influenced badly. But now this made them lack social skills. Obviously, having been so isolated, they were lacking in social skills. And he only ever spoke outside of his family and the goats that he tended to. He tended goats for his father. Other than that, he only ever spoke to this other lady named Beauty. Now, she was the neighbor's daughter. She was beautiful. He admired her. He fancied her. And he was, I guess, in love with her, but she did not reciprocate that. She just wasn't feeling him. She was not interested in him like that. And he carried that rejection. Beauty plays a very important role in the story moving forward, just by the way. I am struggling to eat. I haven't even taken a bite yet. I'm sorry. Let me just take one bite. When he was 12 years old, his father tragically passed away, and his sister then left the family. The sister that he admired and loved so much left the family, which made him feel rejected. He carried that in his heart, like, I guess he felt abandoned by his sister. And he carried that in his heart for the rest of his life. Then when he was 13, he moved in with his grandmother, who started taking him to school. And apparently he struggled. He struggled with school. He wasn't used to socializing. He just had no social skills. He struggled making friends, and he particularly struggled at most just speaking to girls. He did, however, have his first sexual encounter during a Durban vacation, and this encounter was done through what is known as ukusoma. Ukusoma is thigh sex. It's basically, that's it. It's just thigh sex, and it's known as a Zulu custom that is there to prepare young ones for future sexual experiences without the consequence of STDs, as well as without the consequence of pregnancy mainly. And that was the first and last sexual experience he had until he was 19, when he began raping the victims. Remember I said that he started attending school, but while he was in school, he then joined the ANC. Now, for those of you who are watching from outside of South Africa, the ANC is basically the part... wicked. Like, I could say so much about the ANC, but I'm not gonna. It's the current ruling party in South Africa, and it has been since 1994, which was the first democratically held elections in South Africa. Also the party that Nelson Mandela was president of when he became president of South Africa. But obviously just before they were actually elected, there was a lot of political just chaos that was happening. And when he joined the ANC, he also recruited some of the pupils from school to become political cadres as well. And then he was later expelled for this. And after he was expelled, he started helping his mother collect firewood because that was their source of income. And then he also got a job at Bulva, so at some small trading shop in Bulva. Now one day, his mom was collecting firewood. And while she was collecting firewood, she finds some magazines known as Scope magazine. And these magazines, basically, they're kind of the equivalent of what Playboy is. They just have ladies, posing semi-naked, very seductively, all that. I'll insert some pictures somewhere on the screen. Basically, the magazines were there to, they were sort of like what pornography was at the time. But I put myself in his mother's shoes, and I get it. Like, I totally get it. Her heart was in the right place. She didn't know what of a monster her son was, and she just wanted to give him something beyond the scope of poverty. When she gave him these magazines, she just wanted to give him something other than what they had, like other than the basic needs that they were just fulfilling. I think it was I'm guessing it was difficult for them to entertain themselves in any way. I don't think they had magazines, do you know that? And if they did, if her mother managed to get any magazines, it would be women's magazines. So I don't think Zikode had anything to entertain himself, and his mother must have just felt, like she's not able to provide for her child. And so when she found those magazines, she was like, well, at least I have something that, he won't be so bored in the house. And, he'll have something to pass the time with instead of just sitting there and thinking about how poor they are. And so she gave him these magazines, and he was impressed with what he found in the magazines. He particularly was enchanted by the girls who were sitting on chairs in a certain way, and whatever pose they were doing on the chairs. And those are the ones that he put up on his wall. And then one day, let me just check if I'm not skipping anything. Sorry. Join the ANC. Yeah. Yes. On the 13th of April, 1995, while he was finishing his shift at the shop in the Bulva trading shop, whatever, he was going through these magazines. And then he became sexually aroused. But for him, being sexually aroused is just not the same as what it means for the ordinary person, because he becomes a monster. And after finishing his shift, he decides to step out. He then notices two ladies who just stepped out of a taxi by the name of Thandi and Makosi. These two ladies were waiting for Makosi's brother, who was also Thandi's boyfriend, to come and fetch them. When he approaches them, he straight up demands sex from Thandi. He didn't flirt. He didn't seduce. He didn't beat around the bush. He didn't ask for numbers. Okay, I don't know if they had cell phones, but he didn't. He didn't say something like, "Oh, can I walk you up?" No, he straight up goes to him and says, "Hey, I want to have sex with you." He's not asking, he's telling you. Then obviously Thandi was like, nah, like hell nah. Okay, she was just like, no, she refused. She was like, definitely not. And then this guy produces a firearm. Makosi tried to intervene, but sadly Thandi does get wounded. Wounded as she is, she flees the scene. She flees. But sadly, uZikode then catches up with her on a footpath. He then demands that she bends over and touches her toes. He begins to rape her. Mind you, she is wounded. He rapes her and then he flees. Then on the 19th of April, 1995, Sibongile and her boyfriend Sibongiseni were in his house at the Nkwezela township. Zikode then came with his balaclava and his 9mm pistol. He knocks the door down. He fires at both Sibongiseni and Sibongile and kills them instantly. Unfortunately, there were no forensics done on the bodies, so we do not know whether he may have raped her post-mortem, although he is not above that. He's known not to be above that. On the 14th of May, 1995, a body of a woman was found in the Bulwer forest. She had no clothes on except her shoes, and her legs were spread eagled, and they were kept to the ground through a wooden peg. Parts of her vagina, as well as her right breast, front neck area, her face, and her scalp were removed. They also found grass and small twigs inside of her vagina, of what remained of her vagina. So Zikode had a lot of time. He knew the area. That's one thing they know. But this guy is definitely from the community, because the person who did this definitely knows Wutilana. People don't come around. And so he had the time to do this nasty thing that he did. On the 9th of June 1995, 30-year-old Poswa from St. Charles went to visit his sister-in-law as well as the children in their home. And they were sitting in, it doesn't say here where their home was though. But anyway, they were sitting in the kitchen, catching up, I guess, as family does. And then suddenly the door was knocked open by none other than Zikode. When he gets in, he then produces a firearm. Umzoyayo attempted to disarm the man, but unfortunately he was then wounded after that he ran. And after he ran, Zikode fired several shots at Ntombi. On the 24th of June, Caroline and her 9-year-old daughter were just chilling in their home when the door was struck open. Now, Zikode then demanded Caroline sit on the chair and poses in these poses. It's the same poses that he saw the girls do on those magazines, those Scope magazines. He makes her sit in those poses, and then he begins to rape her for several hours. He rapes her, and then he remembers that actually there's a 9-year-old in the house. He looks for the 9-year-old. He looks for her. He finds the child hiding underneath the bed, probably terrified. Probably so terrified. He finds her. And then he rapes her too. You can only imagine the horror. The horror. Anyway, on the 26th of June 1995, Phumelani and Amos were walking to work in St. Charles when they were approached by Zikode, who produced a firearm. He shot both of them. He shot Amos in the neck. Yes, he shot Amos in the neck, and he shot Phumelani on the right leg, which caused her to stutter. It was just impossible for her to run. He then takes her and drags her off the road. He begins demanding sex while touching her private parts. Luckily for her, a car then approaches them and Zikode runs. Both Amos and Phumelani were hospitalized, but unfortunately Amos did die from his wound and Phumelani did survive. Phumelani, I apologize. Then on the 1st of July 1995, Simpiwe and Anakleta were asleep at a Tafuleni location in their home. Zikode locked and kicked open the door and shot Simpiwe. He then dragged Anna, who screamed so much that neighbors did hear, and luckily she managed to break free and Zikode made a run for it. On the 8th of July 1995, Zanele was sleeping in her home at Kwezela Township, and Zikode forced open the door and shot Zanele. He then dragged her to a nearby plantation where he raped her and then he killed her. On the 27th of July, Beauty. Now remember, I told you guys about Beauty, the only other person that Zikode associated with in his early childhood, the neighbor's daughter that he fancied. He approaches her while she was walking to work. He approached her while wearing a balaclava, and he was armed with a firearm. She screamed and attempted to flee, but Zikode fired and shot her at a temple. She recovered in hospital, and although she did make a recovery, she just was too afraid to point him out as the man who has been terrorizing the community. I should probably eat like the dessert now because this is finished. On the 5th of August 1995, Locatia and Cornelia were asleep in her home at the township of Tafuleni, the Tafuleni township. And then Zikode kicked the door open. He demanded sex from both women. He then shot Locatia, and then he dragged Cornelia out of the hut. After dragging her out of the hut, she somehow managed to break free. When she broke free, she ran back into the hut, and then when she was inside the hut, both the women barricaded the door so that he wouldn't be able to kick it open. I'm sure that's his spilio, and that's what he knows, that's his modus operandi, and he was unable to do so, and so he became frustrated, and then he began firing shots at the door, which did wound both women, but luckily both women survived. Excuse me. On the 10th of August, Beauty, she was just like, Yazin, actually, like she just was like, Yazin, I'm actually gonna tell the police. She goes and makes a statement. She tells them, hey, his name is Mhlengwa Zikode. He's the man, and he's the one who attacked me. He's the one who harmed me. But unfortunately, police were unable to make a link between Beauty's case to all the other cases, because the man that they were looking for mainly operated at night, and he also mainly kicked down doors. Like, that's his thing. He was kicking down doors of people who were not suspecting. You know, obviously, what are you suspecting when you're sitting inside your house? Do you get what I mean? After that, he was arrested, but then he made bail. I think 3 days later he was granted a bail of 300 rand. And while on bail, he continued with his nonsense. I almost swore. The case was then handed over to Sergeant Dion of the Port Shipston Murder and Robbery Unit. He was assisted by Inspector Theo Goldstone, who temporarily moved to Donnybrook because he was that dedicated to the cases. Like, as in, we need to find this man. I'm trying to find a proper way to refer to him. And then on the 25th of September, Fikile was asleep in her home until suddenly the door was struck open. Sorry, just... The door was struck open, and obviously it was Zikode in his balaclava and his 9mm pistol. Fikile attempted to throw a blanket at him. Unfortunately, he turned and fired a shot that hit her on the jaw. Thereafter, he raped her, wounded as she was. He raped her, and thereafter fired a final fatal shot to her chest. Over the course of all these murders, the members of the uMzimkhulu community had stoned to death 2 men and had forced one to hang himself because they had suspected those men of being the killers and the killer and the rapist had been terrorizing the community. So 3 people had died brutal deaths for something they had not done. Finally, on the 29th of September 1995, Van Nesten, as well as members of the Port Shipston Murder and Robbery Unit, finally arrested Zikode. Zikode initially confessed to 5 of the murders and the rapes. He didn't take any responsibility for it though. Although he confessed, he basically said that, well, his sister never taught him how to, properly approach ladies. His sister never taught him how to speak to women, so it's her fault that he turned out like this. And he also said that it's not his job, it's not his responsibility to apologize to the community. It's his mother's. That's his mother's duty to do that. That's not him. And I feel so sorry for the mom when I think about this, because especially because when they arrested Zikode, they found all those pictures from that magazine that she had gotten him, that she bought to him. And obviously they made a link because he used poses that he saw on those magazines. He forced the woman to pose that way. And I honestly feel so sorry for her, because she never meant to ignite this monster. She just didn't mean for it to be like that. But sadly, it ended up being like that. I just feel so sorry for her, because she came from a good place. She just wanted her son to, not be bored in the house. She just wanted her son to have something to look at, other than, like I said, the poverty. And instead, this happened. I can only imagine how she must have blamed herself for something that really wasn't her fault, Oh, and another thing that he confessed to, he basically told the police that he's a Catholic man, and that he identified his victims by following them after church. So while we are churching, while we are praying, while we were singing praises and worship, this man is over there looking at the women's section or whatever and thinking, yeah, that's the one, I'm gonna follow her tonight. After the service, I'm gonna follow her, and then after that he's gonna go to the hut, or he's gonna follow her to the house, and then he's gonna go there and do this heinous act of his. He also told them that after one of the victims had died, I'm sorry, I'm laughing because it's just so evil. I'm just thinking about, anyway. After one of his victims had died, his mom basically asked him to go help at the scene, and that he had actually helped lift the body and put it into the mortuary van, the body that he had killed. After being arrested, he did actually escape prison, but then he was rearrested after a housebreaking that he was involved in. And then on the 30th of June 1997, Zikode was sentenced to 5 life terms, which amounted to 140 years. Whew, guys, it's hard doing a mukbang. And so many people do mukbangs. I know not a lot of people do mukbang and crime story, but a lot of people do mukbangs and they talk while they're eating, but hi, it's been tough. It's been really tough to do so, I'll admit, but please guys, share the story. Share the story with your friends. Share it with your family members. Share it with everyone. I really do want to include clips of missing persons somewhere, whether it be the beginning or the end of the video. I really believe that these stories can raise a lot of awareness And I want people to become nosy neighbors. That's what I want. I want South Africans to become more nosy neighbors. Meaning that if you hear something, report, call the police. If you yourself, you don't feel the courage to go there and check out and fight anyone, at least call the police, okay? I actually forgot to mention while telling the stories that the reason why there were several gunshots that were fired, but no police were ever called, nobody ever did anything, was because of the political riots that were that were happening a lot around those times. And so people followed a very strict Angizingeni policy. Like, if you hear anything as gain, just do not, it's none of your business, because most of the time these things were politically motivated. And so members of the community just knew better than to get involved in anything. And that's why Zikode managed to get away, like managed to shoot people and then just get out. But I am saying that, look, if you hear a gunshot at your neighbor's house, that you can call the police, that you should call the police. If you hear anything, some screams, if you hear anything, just do what you can. Call the police. If you really can't do anything, call the police, do something. And taking videos as well is also, I think, a good thing. Obviously, if you can please just call the police first, or if someone else can call the police while you take a video, I really do think that videos are a good thing. Now we have that, we are able to do that, so please do that, guys. Please, it really helps. If there's anything else that I forgot, it'll be in the description down below or something, or in the pinned comment or something. Thank you guys so much for joining me.